Enterprise Management 360.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech Chat. Now in today's episode, I'm being joined by James Royster, who is the former head of data strategy and operations at Celgene. So James, welcome to the show and thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And I wanted to start here, James, by wondering if you could give us an introduction to DataOps and really what impact it's currently having on organizations.
Well, I'm going to start with the impact on DataOps because I think that's really key. And then I think the impact on organizations really runs the gamut from people who are struggling to people who are actually being able to do some pretty amazing things. And a lot of people like the bell curve that sit in the middle of that continuum. But what DataOps is, and the way I like to think about it, and I know the way the folks at DataKitchen think about it, because I've been working with them for many, many years on this journey, is it is very similar to lean manufacturing in automotives. And when I say that, what we're talking about is a lot of people look at the end result of the data. They look at the analysis, they look at the model, they look at the AI, and they put a lot of focus into that and then gaining the insight. What DataOps does is it takes a step back and just like good manufacturing, it says, all right, in order to achieve that optimal automobile or that optimal cell phone or that optimal computer, you have to put a lot of emphasis on the actual process of making it. Mm-hmm. And so what DataOps is, it takes that kind of philosophy and now applies it to something that where traditionally hasn't been applied, to the flow of data through the system. So if you look at a pharmaceutical company, I think we are a great example. The company itself both ingests and produces a lot of data. Mm-hmm. The data comes from a lot of different places. It has a lot of different quality levels, and each of those data sets coming into the organization have an inherent value and an inherent risk. What DataOps does is you focus on that data transformation throughout this entire process. And first with a focus on quality. So you're looking to say that the data coming in is a high quality set of data, or the data being produced. There's a focus on the quality of the transformation. So when you change data or you apply data business rules or something along those lines, that's being an accurate reflection and it's consistent throughout the entire data stream. And then the final part, which is the most important part, is the data is becoming available to create value for the organization. And I think that's the main thing. And that's where when we talk a little bit more about, how companies are making their transformation, it really is about that value. And so when I talk about the value, it's ensuring a couple things. One, the data is readily available to be worked on. It is easily transformed, and this has always been a challenge in data, and data operations is solving this challenge. It's been always a challenge in analytics, which is that transformation part, and that the data can be quickly deployed and used for the organization to gain value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's such a key takeaway as we go through this conversation. The data and value is so important for these organizations. And when we're also talking about DataOps, it's important to know that there's a cultural shift is really required in order for it to succeed in business. So what do companies really need to be mindful of when they're going through these internal changes?
The first thing is they have to have a really good understanding of their culture. Mm-hmm. And there has to be a very honest conversation within the organization, how the organization actually views all this. And again, the organizations range from nobody even cares or thinks about it to, we're very passionate. But I think that's the first step, is the organization has to have that honest conversation. How do we view these things now? And that has to be layered on top of then, how do we want to view this? How will data transform our business? And I think organizations have to be very mindful of staying away from the conversations that lead to data for the sake of data, and really focus on that end result of, if we want this value from the data, what are the backward steps we have to do in order to get that value? And once they can start having that conversation across the continuum, another pitfall I see with organizations is these conversations, they happen, but they happen within the IT or analytics structure. And they're not very inclusive of the business users, who are actually the people who rely on the data to make decisions or have things happen within the organization.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's important to be cautious of those steps when you're kind of making them, and for businesses to understand why they're making those steps, to really have a fully evolved idea when it comes to it. And that leads me now on to my last question, because at the end of the day, whenever we're talking about introducing anything into an organization, it comes down to results. So how would you effectively show results that an organization has effectively deployed and maximized its DataOps initiative?
Well, there's a couple levels. And the first level is really just things at the end of the day that data was able to enable. So, you can use some examples in pharmaceuticals. Did your data infrastructure help a patient have a better result? Did it help a doctor have a better outcome? Did it help the organization make better decisions? And that's kind of like that end thing. And are the people who are digesting the data, are they, and this is a simple question, but it's a very critical question, are they happy and satisfied with the experience they're getting from the data team? So are they getting things timely? Are they part of the process? Is the iteration process easy? Because the best analytics results come through the process of iteration. Those are like the high level things. Then you kind of like start to step back, and you can look at very discrete metrics, which I think are critical, because you can't fix things you can't see. So are your error rates lower? When you're digesting data and it's getting to the end user to be transformed for some sort of use, are they spending a lot of time fixing things that could have been caught before? Is the cycle time for somebody to say, hey, I would like to see a prototype of this analysis, is that lower? And these are things that you can actually discretely measure. And then you can start to take those types of measurements backwards through the pipeline, actually all the way to people, syndicated organizations that send you data, and then start to like measure quality across. So I think to kind of summarize that, the first and most important measure is that value. Can you point to distinct, this discrete value that the organization got? Are the people receiving that value satisfied? And then you can start to do very, very critical measurements to show that you've improved. It used to take us this long. Now it takes us this long. We used to have this many errors. Now we have this many errors. Our suppliers used to send data at this level of quality. Now it's this level of quality.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot of information in there that organizations can take and really understand how they're effectively showing results, as we've been discussing, and really make the journey that they're about to go on or are currently go on really beneficial. So James, thank you for coming on to today's episode, walking us through it. You're very welcome. And for everyone who's watching, we hope you did take a lot of information away from this. We have some resources down below in the links. And of course, to join in the conversation, please head on over to @EM360 on Twitter and LinkedIn. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. And of course, for more great daily content, please head on over to em360tech.com.